Remember the summer of 2016? For me, this was the summer after I graduated high school, but before I went on to start college. The first time I went to Pride with my then girlfriend, my first circle tour around Lake Michigan, and another year of visiting Florida with my grandparents. But it was also a big year in history. The 2016 presidential election was looming on the horizon, and both candidates were in the news nonstop. But a time of surprising peace at the same time, in no small part due to the release of a game that proved revolutionary, a game that shaped a cultural event. That's right, summer 2016 was the summer of Pokemon Go. Like past Pokemon games, Pokemon Go, which launched on July 6, 2016, was about catching them all. But unlike Pokemon games of the past, the world in which you searched for Pokemon, big and small, was not a fictional place. It was the real world. The game's developer, Niantic, built on an augmented reality model developed in their previous game, Ingress. Players of Pokemon Go could not simply sit around. Instead, the game required them to get out of the house, visiting landmarks and exploring their neighborhoods in order to find useful items and coveted Pokemon. Right away, people were drawn in large numbers by the novel concept. Niantic's servers were swamped with players, leading to numerous issues getting and staying connected. But despite this, the players were still overwhelmingly intrigued. The spirit of exploration and discovery that people loved about the Pokemon games had been brought to the real world. People gathered into parties to play together. And the fact that the same Pokemon appeared in one spot for all players at the same time meant that communication between strangers in the same geographic area was facilitated. The game was having a positive effect on people's habits. Players were going out for exercise willingly, enjoying the lovely summer weather, and making new friends along the way. Some businesses prospered from the increase in foot traffic, particularly those near Pokestops. There were plenty of issues as well. The technical problems were a daily hassle. Players amassed in crowds that overwhelmed certain inappropriate locations, like churches and graveyards. And irresponsible players who played while driving were more likely to get into accidents. But as the summer ended and the weather became more hostile for prolonged time spent outdoors, the trend died down, at least for a while. Fast forward to summer of 2017. I had just completed my first year at college. My family took another trip to Florida. I got to see steam-powered giraffe live, and I went on my first ever cruise. And like last year, historic events marked the season. Donald Trump, months into his presidency, announced the decision to withdraw from the Paris Climate Agreement, and a total solar eclipse is visible in a band across the US. But one event that both made waves in the news and that I experienced personally has to do with the biggest craze of summer 2016, Pokemon Go Fest. The event was scheduled for July 22, 2017, to be hosted in Chicago's Grant Park. Tickets went on sale at $20, but were sold out within 15 minutes. Scalpers went on to resell these tickets for exorbitant prices, and people from across the country and even abroad traveled into the city for the event. And take one guess, who was living a train ride away from Chicago at the time and managed to get her hands on a ticket before they sold out? Me. Ya girl. My day started with a hearty breakfast and then a trip on the Red Line into downtown. I got off at Jackson and walked east to Grant Park. A single entrance on Jackson Drive was used to funnel the estimated 20,000 attendees into the park. As I approached what I thought was the end of the line, about here, I had an interaction that went roughly like this. "Hey, is this the end of the line?" "No, actually the end of the line is back there." "Oh, you mean the line goes all the way to the fountain?" "No, it wraps around the fountain. 3 times. "Oh. Oh. But it's okay, you can cut in front of us." Really? Oh my god, thank you, thanks so much! As I would find out later, I lucked out in a major way that morning. I managed to avoid hours of waiting in line just to get in, which other users had to face. That alone probably improved my experience of the event considerably. Once I arrived at the gate, after less than half an hour of waiting, they scanned the bracelet which I had been mailed. I was given an envelope with a QR code, which I then scanned in-game to access the event content. Note, the people waiting in line, despite being within interaction range of the park, could not yet access this content. I took a quick photo with some of the decorations, then went to the main stage area as something was getting started. Trainer Tips Nick, my favorite Pokemon Go YouTuber, was on stage. He announced he would be doing a meet and greet shortly, and I managed to get a selfie with the back of his head. I queued up to do the meet and greet and had a nice chat with the people next to me in line. At this point, I started playing the game, or I should say, trying to play, because I basically couldn't. No one could. You see, the problem, as we would find out later, was that the local cell towers could not handle the game traffic. The cell carriers underestimated the amount of data that would need to flow through their towers and were overwhelmed. Ordinarily, for big events like this, the existing infrastructure would be bolstered by temporary towers called cows, but only Sprint, an official sponsor for the game, set these up. Everyone on other networks experienced ridiculously slow speeds getting into the game, as well as frequent crashes that required they restart the game. The result was that attendees could only successfully play for minutes at a time, followed by minutes of downtime trying to get back into the game. This was what I experienced throughout the day, moments of success tempered by stretches of frustration. After about an hour in line, I reached the front and was able to meet Nick. Afterwards, I walked around for another while. I found that my connection strength was slightly better in the southern third of the park. One strategy I developed was to establish a connection in this area, then move to the north to access the rest of the content. Several times throughout the event, raids were held. This was a fairly new feature added to the game, where strong Pokemon would appear and need to be taken down with teamwork for the opportunity to catch them. GoFest was intended to be the introduction of legendary Pokemon through raiding. However, thanks to the disruptions from connection interruptions, these raids were nearly impossible to succeed in. You could wait for one to start, only for the game to crash from the graphical strain of showing the raid egg hatching. You could get into the raid itself, but with no guarantee that the game would manage to keep afloat long enough to catch it. And of course, you could just fail to catch the Pokemon with the allotted balls, as advanced strategies for how to catch raid bosses had yet to be developed. But I did manage to catch a few raid bosses. Of these Pokemon which I caught on the day of GoFest, Sather and Rosa were raid bosses. A few hours into the event, I bought a slice of overpriced pizza. I think, of everything in the event, the food stands were the thing that functioned most according to plan. As the event reached its conclusion, Niantic realized the extent of their failure. They began the long process of putting out fires. First, they would extend the event area to all of downtown Chicago for the rest of the weekend, allowing attendees to access event content without needing to be in the park itself. Next, they would give all attendees a free Lugia, to make up for the fact that the legendary raid at the end of the event had to be cancelled. Here you see, I named mine Freedom, because I got it for free. And lastly, they would give everyone there $100 in Pokecoins. Not 100 Pokecoins, as some initially assumed, $100 in Pokecoins. For a free-to-play player like me, this was an immense boost. I bought new avatar clothing, expanded my inventory and Pokemon storage capacity, and occasionally bought items as needed. And that evening, as the event in the park dispersed, attendees made their way across the city, continuing to play. And I was not there. I went home. I was tired, and I didn't want to be alone in the city after dark. But the next day, I went back with my mom and sibling, who both play Pokemon Go too. And we meandered the city in search of more rare Pokemon. These are the Pokemon I caught that day, which I have held on to. That day, I had much fewer connectivity problems. We spent the day enjoying the sights, and we topped it all off with some Giordano's. By the way, as a Chicago girl, anyone who visits Chicago without getting Giordano's has committed a pizza sin. I will fight anyone on this. Giordano's has the best pizza in Chicago, and I will not compromise about this. So, was it all worth it? For me, absolutely. If I had to place my Pokemon Go Fest 17 experience on the spectrum of every attendee's experience, mine would sit somewhere above average, I'm sure. To start with, I avoided the immense line just to enter the park and begin playing. And while the problems plaguing the event itself were far from fun, their operations were plenty enjoyable. Plus, I wasn't one of the ones who bought a scalper ticket for hundreds, or who traveled internationally just to attend. I invested little compared to some, and was satisfied with the outcome. Plus, it gave me the authority to talk about it in this video. Ultimately, Pokemon Go Fest 2017 was an event killed by its own hype. People became too invested too quickly, and this, metaphorically and literally, overwhelmed Niantic and doomed the project from the get-go. How could a first-time convention meet these overblown expectations? So what lesson is there to learn from this? Well, perhaps too much of something good can become something bad. Too much hype can become unreachable expectations. And too many excited fans can become too many enraged customers to deal with. Thank you all for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. I wanted to do something special if I reach 10 subscribers, and since you all have already seen my face, I'm thinking I'll do a cat reveal instead. If you want to make that happen, make sure you hit the subscribe button and enable notifications so you get an alert when that happens. That's all for now. Please come back next time for more content.